All right, Thomas.
Yeah, who do we have today, Robbie?
We have Patrick Nava from, as you would say, and as he would say, Adidas. As us Americans would say,
Adidas.
Adidas.
Three stripes.
Yeah, the three. We can just go three stripes. Does that work?
That works. Hey guys.
All right, Patrick. What's your official title?
I'm the vice president of product management for running globally.
Okay.
Well, that's more than the Adi Zero. That's everything.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. It's like we're always trying to determine who is on the hierarchy of positions based on their title. Sometimes it's hard to tell, and then other times
banks, everybody's a vice president. I don't know how it is at the running companies, but is there a lot of vice presidents walking around, or are you the?
In running, there's three of us that work on product directly. So it's me, the guy who leads design, the guy who leads development. That's sort of the core team.
All right,
Okay,
cool.
cool.
So I know that there's several lines. We've got obviously like the Supernova side. We've got the Ultra Boost side. We've got Adi Zero. Do you have a favorite baby?
It's like choosing between children, right? You can't, like, also because they're all teams reporting to me, so I wouldn't say that they each and every one has their own special gifts and talents.
So Adi Zero.
yeah.
I mean, let's talk about it. That's the sexy one. I mean, if you're gonna go, Boost is great for fashion and running, but if we're going straight hardcore performance, it's Adi Zero, right?
Yeah, like if you want to go fast, that's the one. That's the one we've also been pushing quite a lot over the last couple of seasons in its own merit, in its own space. And we're quite excited about what's about to happen in Berlin.
Yeah. Well, before we get to that, I do want to throw out a nice compliment to the Adi Zero line. Is the SL2, I think, is one of the best shoes value for bang for the buck. Is that what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, easily.
It's such a great trainer that can be used for like so many things, and you get that little light boost in there, or the Light Strike Pro in there. It's a nice shoe.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. I was actually, funny enough, I think you, Robbie, were mentioning, I think a couple of episodes ago that was one of your go-to trainers right now. And funnily enough, I was listening to you guys. Not the episode before last. This morning, I was on my run. I'm not quite sure what happened now with your 12th mile race or the 20 that you did. So I just got to the point where you were at 30 seconds from the start.
Nice.
To listen to the
That's
rest
awesome.
later.
Okay, yeah, it was a wild ride.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It sounded like.
yeah. Hopefully that doesn't happen the morning of Berlin where I set the wrong alarm for the wrong day and then sprinting to the start.
I think we'll be good in Berlin.
Yeah.
You probably won't even sleep.
That's the thing. Yeah, that'll be the opposite. I wish I could fall asleep. But anyways, yeah, that shoe is so good. The SL2. I remember when we first got it and wore it, I was kind of very surprised. I mean, it feels like it sits like in that $160 price range of a lot of those shoes. I feel with the Light Strike Pro, just the responsiveness, the feel, the fit is so good on that shoe.
And so the audience knows it's at full retail $130. I don't know why European pricing shifts around so much. Maybe you guys is it because you guys don't follow MAP pricing or something?
No, you don't have it in Europe. It's illegal to do that.
Okay.
So we set a global price, and then usually the markets have some discretionary corridor, also depending on where competition sits or where they think it's going to land with the different consumers and retail partners, and then they can adjust it.
Yeah. So is that how? Can you explain that a little bit more to me? Because I wasn't sure about that. Is that how shoes that might come out? They might only be out for a week or two and they're on sale already?
Usually commercial decisions are taken in the market, right? So we set, from a global point of view, the general strategy of the season. Of course, we would want the shoes to go on discount as late as possible, like ideally seasons within their life cycle. But the markets, so the local organizations are the one that ultimately have to manage the inventory at some point. And so depending on how fast or slow a shoe might move, and it might also vary retailer by retailer, then they they take their own pricing decisions.
Okay.
And not to get too far in the weeds, but at that point, you've already sold. Adidas has sold the shoe to them.
Yeah.
It's like your profit, your margin that you need to hit to make the shoe successful has already happened. It's just now that whether or not the consumers the person selling the shoe is going to reap as much of a
Yeah,
return.
yes and no. So there's, I mean, we also sell directly, right? So there's a part of the shoes that we still sell,
Right.
and we own the inventory of that. So that's again for the market organization to manage. And then of course we always want to also do right by our partners, right? So in some instances, either you help them manage inventory if something doesn't go great, or if they need additional inventory if things are going well. So because it's not a one-off game, right? It's repeated over seasons and season, right? You don't want to be like, okay, here's a shoe, then off you are to the races, whether you sell it or not. We're not interested anymore. We're very much interested in the success of our partners.
Gotcha. So how long have you been with Adidas?
That's a long. So I think my working history with Adidas started in 2011, and I've been in my current position for a little bit over 3 years.
Okay, great. And where did you start out at the company?
I did a lot of strategy, retail, product strategy at the onset. Before my current role, I was basically the right hand of the chief marketing officer, which is basically the chief of the Adidas brand.
Okay, cool.
That's a different route. Normally, we find a lot of people coming through the tech rep route, working at the stores and stuff like that. But that seems a little bit faster and easier.
It depends. You come in from a different angle and with a different perspective. I think I come more from trying to understand the consumer, the strategy, the business. And then I have a great team that is built of people either who came through the tech rep route or were very accomplished runners themselves, or grew up in product management or in design. The way I usually like to build a team is to have people with different backgrounds. I think you can learn any skill in a couple of years, right? There's people who become doctors in 4 or rocket scientists, right?
Yeah.
I think what makes a difference is the attitude and the mentality you bring to any job. And I like having people different perspective because it gives us different ways to solve a problem or approach something instead of everyone having gone through the same school.
Yeah.
So your running background, were you always into running?
I've always been an athlete. I grew up playing tennis, soccer. Having grown up in Italy, you can't get by that. Like, it doesn't matter where you end up athletically, you will at some point be in soccer, and rugby. And then I became more serious in the 2000s in running. I ran my first marathon in 2007, and then since then it's been a part of my life. It's disheartening that I'm probably on my team one of the slowest one. Several people who ran like 2:30. I have a guy. We were in a city and like he went out partying the whole night, came back at the hotel at 6, took a shower, and then ran at 2:45. And you're like, how do you do that?
Those are the worst people, by the way.
Seriously,
they're really bad people.
They don't deserve to have a friend group. That's terrible.
It's interesting though. You brought up the Italian background, and one of the things I noticed when we went to Outsole to visit the headquarters of Adidas is how international the team is. It's not like you don't go over there and it's like all these German, people. It's people from all over the world.
Yeah, I don't even know how many nationalities we have on campus or how many languages. The official language of the company is English, even though we're based here in, it's called rural Bavaria. If I think just of my direct team, I think I have for sure over 10 different nationalities.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, making English was very kind of you, since all of us English speakers speak only English pretty much, but yeah.
American
American, we speak American.
Sorry. Yeah. Everyone else is pretty cool.
Yeah.
With learning.
No, it's like it, but I think it speaks to that diversity, right? Like there's also people who really come with different life experience. It gives you also different perspectives from the markets. Like ultimately being a global company, it's good that somebody has a little bit more of a pulse of what's happening in the US market and someone else what's happening in Japan. or in China. Sometimes it doesn't make product creation easier or the color selection easier, but at least it gives you a global perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to ask a little bit, because I think Adidas develops shoes a little bit differently than we're used to from some other companies. I feel like other companies are pretty linear, that a model comes out, a year later there's an update to the model. Maybe it's a half step, like a new upper on a midsole, and then it kind of like every year you can expect a jump. And we're going to talk here a little bit about the Adios Pro 4. And we've been waiting for this shoe for a while. And at first it was frustrating, and then I was like, wait a second, I like the fact that the shoe's not coming out until they feel it's actually an improvement over the previous shoe.
Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit about that philosophy and how you guys go about developing a shoe line?
Yeah, in a nutshell, it's that. And specifically going to talk about Adizero. There's, maybe before I go into that, there's definitely shoes that have, let's say, more of a commercial relevance, where there's an expectation and you work with partners together about the role that they play in the overall market. And there, the life cycle management of a product does make a difference because you've certain commercial support behind it. And you can plan it a little bit more because of the role that they play from an economic point of view. Adizero we treat a little bit differently. Adizero is ready when it's ready. And as you mentioned, like I also wanted to bring the Pro 4 out earlier. The Pro 3 was just hard to beat. It was a good shoe. And all of our athletes, all of our testing were telling us it's still better than what we were cooking down in the lab. And in some ways, we needed to develop the Evo Pro one to understand what we needed to do better from the Pro 3. And that's ultimately what was the big unlock. And there you're a little bit liberated from the standard commercial timelines. We bring something when it's ready and when we think that it is truly an improvement from a performance point of view from the previous version.
What's really interesting is the last two running events that we've been to in 2022 and 2023. 2022, the mannequin had a Pro 4 on that was basically an upper change for the Pro 3, which we never saw. And then this year when we saw you at the running event, the midsole of the Pro 4 was kind of a hybrid midsole where it incorporated foams from Evo 1 and the Light Strike Pro. And that's not that long ago.
Yeah.
So I was a little surprised when we got this new version that it's all Light Strike Pro.
Correct, but it's a different Light Strike Pro, so it's not exactly this. It's not the same that you have on a Pro 3.
Different formula.
It's a different formulation, right? So we played a little bit more. Yeah, it's a little bit softer. And it has more energy return than the Pro 3 had or has. And that was exactly, I think, when we saw each other. Was it last November? There we were still tinkering with a couple of options. The one that I discussed with you guys was the one that at that moment we thought was going to be, or was the most likely one. And then we kept doing testing. We kept working with our athletes and the testers that we have here. And then eventually we ended up with this additional formulation, which I'm not sure we had back at that time. And so we realized this one was the best in terms of athlete performance and also gave us a little bit extra durability to that one hybrid that we looked at together at TRE last year.
So it's going to have the Evo 1 foam is not built for multiple races or a lot of efforts.
So let's say like that. That was not the goal when we built it, right? I know there was a little bit of misconception when the Evo Pro came out. It's built only for one race and then it's going to fall apart. No, not quite. Like we have one of our athletes, Amanal Petros, who's the guy who broke the German record with the Evo Pro 3 last year in September in Berlin. He was running one right now, and I think he's over 300 kilometers. The shoe looks just fine. But the idea back then when we developed the Pro 1 was, what if I don't need to care about how long the shoe is going to last, because I'm going to apply a little bit of a Formula One principle to it, right? Like Formula One is just built to win a specific race. If the engines last a couple of races, that's great, but that's not the primary goal. And the goal with the Pro 1 was just like, what if we created the fastest shoe we could possibly think of? What are all the changes that we would do with regards to how we develop a racing product traditionally. And that gave us some inspiration also in terms of the chemical formulation, without going too much into the details about what we needed to do for the Pro 4. Like, how can we take some of the properties that we discovered, but in this case, apply it for a use case that is extended over multiple races, multiple hundreds of kilometers, and it needs to stand the test of time.
Well, I kind of feel like the Evo 1, there's different times where a running shoe comes in and it kind of disrupts the entire industry and kind of is like almost like a marker on a timeline. You can probably think of some of the past ones. But for me, of recent ones, of the recent years, and I'm talking the last 3 to 4 years, the Evo 1 is one that kind of put a little pin in the map that I feel like now that, and when I say that it changes the industry, every running shoe company I think is going to be aiming at creating something that equals what the Evo 1 did. Do you feel that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as anything, once you come up with something like that, I think it does put a little bit of a target on your back. And it's great, like at first, and then you're like, oh crap, we got to do something. You're like, we're already thinking about the next iteration and the one after, actually.
Yeah.
I can't tell you more than that right now. But like, Evo 1 was great because I think it also gives us a little bit of more of a kick of like, okay, we got this, we got to make it better. What do we change the next time? Your brain starts to just like think very differently about these sort of products.
Yeah. I think, and we did a brief overview of this shoe earlier this week, and with some of your coworkers at Adidas, and I told them one of the things that I felt like, and you kind of mentioned this because you said you went to the Evo 1 for some of the inspiration, or you had to build the Evo 1 to get to the Pro 4. I do feel like this shoe is in some ways a bridge between those two shoes, because like, and I haven't run in the Evo 1, but I know
I will tell you it is.
Yeah.
This to me feels like a beefed up Evo 1, but it's still weight wise. We're talking what, an ounce and a half heavier than the Evo 1 around there.
So in ounces, it will be, what is it? I
Or
need to convert
grams.
it real quick. Like, I think it's
You
just
can give
around
grams if
7
you
right
want.
now. So I think it's just around 7 ounces, the Pro 4, and I think the Evo was like 4.5, 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
So yeah, so it's more like 3 ounces then. Yeah.
All right, I
2-3
think it's
ounces
just under
heavier.
5. Yeah, like 2 ounces. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Evo 1 is 138 grams, and this one is 200 grams. So just so
I mean,
60 something grams of difference.
Yeah. So I didn't weigh. I just got my pair yesterday or 2 days ago, and we don't like to weigh our shoes before we run in them.
I did weigh this one.
Oh, did you?
I
Okay.
did. So it's nice because right now I think there's 2 tiers of super shoes, and it's ones that are under 8 ounces for a size 10.5 for me, and ones that are above. And then there's the Evo 1s and the stuff that's like ridiculously, it's not even on the charts. But so this one falls into that lighter category. There's only about 3 or 4 shoes in that space where it's under 8 ounces for a size 10.5. But what I really liked about the update, and I don't want to give too much away before we ask questions about it, but the foam on it it feels a lot more, I don't know, energetic than the last one, where the last one felt good and firm and had definitely had energy return. This one has that give when you land, and then where you guys have moved back the fulcrum for the toe off, it just, you get kind of that bounce under the fat pad or behind the toes that just kind of launches you into that next stride. So in that, the weight kind of is, this one gives you more bounce, I feel like, than you get from the Evo 1. The Evo 1 is purely lightweight with cushioning. This one is that energy return with the cushioning. It feels great.
Yeah, and I think that was exactly the intent. So in terms of energy return, if you just take the foam on say mechanical plate testing, the values of energy return that you have from the Evo 1 and the Pro 4 are actually quite similar. Of course, as you mentioned, like the trade-off is the Evo 1 is lighter, right? That's why it has a little bit less density in terms of foam. Whereas the Pro 4 has a foam that is more dense. Therefore, I think you get more of that cushioning feeling that you don't get with the Evo 1. Right? At the
Well,
expense a little bit of weight.
now you guys warned us. You put a card in my Evo ones that said it was for a certain speed for the marathon. And I went out. We had a warm day in Boston, and I was on my feet for a little bit longer than the recommended time
Just a little bit.
for the Evo 1. And I have to tell you that I was in the year before that I ran the Pro 4. So I was really kind of missing some of that extra support from the Pro 4 by the time that I was done. So you guys proved a point that, yeah, you should
weren't
be
lying.
running fast. But so I'm actually really looking forward to running Berlin in the Pro 4 because I think it'll just be the perfect shoe for that. Can we talk a little bit about the foam? Because everybody obviously, when we think of high performance, PIBA is what we think of. You guys don't use PIBA in your foams. Is it an aliphatic TPU? What is like?
This is a TPE. A TPE.
TPE?
Yeah.
And the formulation seems to be getting better because before I didn't feel like it quite was competitive to a PIBA based foam. Where this one running in this, I'm like, wow, it would be difficult to tell the difference between them.
The way we always looked at it was PIBA is great in terms of lightness. Like being nitrogen infused, you can make it a little bit lighter. In our perspective, and that's why we stuck with TPE for a little bit longer, is that TPE gives you a little bit more energy return. And I feel like unless you're shaving off a significant amount of weight, over the long distance, at least what we were looking at in the lab was that more energy return, more joules that the shoe would give you back were actually contributing better to the running economy over a long distance. Now, of course, right, it came at the expense of weight, so that's why we worked a lot on specifically that in the new formulation of this foam. And I think we're quite happy with where we've gotten it at right now. We're already working on the next version right now.
Nice.
Well, the Pro 3 was very durable. Like I felt like that was one of those shoes that you could kind of run into the ground. You might lose a little bit of the responsiveness, but with this new formulation, I'm guessing there's more air in the foam or something that's
There's a
giving
little
it that.
bit more. It still passes all of our quality testing right now. They get tested for like 500 plus kilometers. So you still get Adidas durable shoe. I think like quality is something that was always very important for us as a company since its inception. So the testing that I have to go through somehow with my internal folks are quite German in that way.
That's awesome. Take it out on the Autobahn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, can I ask about the upper?
Yeah.
You good? Yeah. I love this upper. So I took it off for the first time last night for my last workout leading up to Berlin. And I'll get into the ride and all that. But the upper fit immediately when you put it on it's incredible. I mean, you can feel it in your hand, just the feel of the upper.
You should say that the previous version you had difficulty with.
Yeah, and I think anyone who's running the Adios Pro 3 knows that if you get the fit right, it's great, but it's very difficult to get that fit dialed in because it's every single eyelet. It needs to be adjusted perfectly. I had some lace bite at times. It was just, it's good if you get it right, but it can go sideways if you don't. But all that to say, this new upper, I mean, when you first feel it in your hands, it's almost unbelievably soft soft and light and thin. And then when you actually put it on, it feels to me like the perfect race fit. Like it just hugs every part of the foot exactly where it should be. And I maybe talk about how you achieve that fit because I don't know there's another race shoe out there for me personally that fits as well as that.
Thank you, first of all. So we're very happy to hear that. And I think exactly, Robbie, from where you started, like we listened to both what our athletes, but our consumers were telling us. Like we like the way the Pro 3 works. The upper is a little bit stiff and, it's hard to lace it up sometimes. You have to wiggle it a little bit. And that's exactly where we started, right? So first of all, we wanted to have a super light upper, right? We wanted to go lighter than the Pro 3 were, a good ounce lighter. And then we came up with this woven material, which we didn't have before. It was this synthetic mesh. It was very light, but it was a little bit stiff. So actually I have it here, right? So this woven material. And you alluded to the second simplification, which was how the eye stays work. We simplified it, which seems like we took stuff away. We actually made them sort of independent from each other, which allows a little bit more customization as you lace it on. It becomes easier to lace on the shoe. And then to make sure that we don't lose the fit, if you guys will look inside from the shoe, let me see if I'm going to pull this out. You'll see it on the inside. There's, I don't know if you can see these bands.
Yep.
Here that go right from the back of the shoe to the front that help in securing. Like you see this yellow.
It's the light.
The neon band.
The yellow band, just yellow band that goes all the way up, basically almost to where your toe starts or your metatarsal zone, but all the lacing it back all the way to the heel. That help keeping the foot down, so you don't lose. Besides, like the fact that it's a more stretchy upper, it stretches only in one direction, right? So not laterally, but only.
It's interesting you say one direction, because when I first put the shoe on, I was a little concerned. I was wearing a thin sock, and I was like, I think my toe might be rubbing in the front on my right foot. And I was like, oh no. And I got about a mile in, and it was fine. And I'm guessing that that's the direction that it's going to stretch a little bit.
Exactly.
So long ways longitudinally.
Exactly. Longitudinally, but not laterally. Yeah. And what helps keeping the foot in place are those bands that I was just mentioning.
And those bands you're marketing it's light.
Well, Light Lock is the name of the overall material that we're using. It's not just the bands.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what is the material again? Can you? I think you said that, but can you say that again?
It's a woven upper.
Yeah.
Instead of being a masher. Yeah.
I really do like. Do you know what I mean? Like it feels so nice.
Yeah, it's definitely.
I don't know what that
Here's the thing. I think the Pro 3, once you got it on your foot, it worked great.
Yeah.
Getting it on and off was not the easiest because the material was rigid.
Yeah, it was pretty stiff
to a certain degree, and the lace holes and the way that it was set up, the laces did not want to give. So like you had to you really had to kind of like work your foot in. Now I noticed that you hit a little thing underneath the pull tab here that says. This too shall pass. What's the story behind that?
So we had some fun putting Easter eggs, both in the shoe, and you will see a couple other ones that are going to come up
cool.
in a couple of months. And I think it speaks a little bit to running as a sport, but also to running a little bit as a metaphor of life. And this is a little bit like I sort of like enjoy the moment, right? Because it will pass, and then sometimes it's hurtful. So don't worry, like it will pass.
Yeah.
When you will be in the middle of it, like there's gonna be those dark moments where you're gonna be like, why am I doing this? But also it's an encouragement to enjoy it because it will pass, and eventually you will miss it. So it's a little bit of a that call to mindfulness that you guys for sure experience this daily, right? That
little tear
state of mind that running puts you in.
Yeah.
All right, let's get down. So we pretty much covered everything except for the rods and the outsole. Let's start with the rods because that's one of the developments that came out of the Evo 1 project.
Correct.
Explain to us how that has changed versus the Pro 3 and why it's going to be an advantage for the runner athlete.
Yeah, and I'm going to link it to something you mentioned before, Thomas, which was the rocker point. So we conducted a pretty extensive study on where this rocker point should be, like which one is the one that gives you the best running economy, which propels you forward the best. And so basically we're using the same rocker point positioning that we have in the Evo. That was one of the things that we took 1-to-1. We're placing it at 60% distance from the heel. The one in the Pro 3 was sort of here at 67, so we placed it back a little bit. And that, of course, influences also how the rods were shaped, right? So they're much more aggressive in the way they're shaped. They bring you on your toes much quicker than the previous iteration was. So it follows exactly that development of the rocker placement.
I feel the advantage to the athlete is it helps you feel like you're going through your cadence quicker. So like it starts the process. And I think that when we get tired, especially in a marathon, as you're leaning forward or going through, that little extra sense of moving forward and kind of like the tipping point on the shoe helps remind you to like lift your feet, go through the stride,
Yeah.
and it kind of helps mentally. I don't know. I'm guessing through your testing, you also found that there's a power ratio or something that's coming out of there as well.
Yeah, the watts that you get are a little bit higher. Watts is usually something we use in cycling so far, but definitely we see a different watting profile from our athletes. Anecdotally, I can tell you that I feel I'm engaging my quads personally more on the Pro 4 than I use on the Pro 3. So it means like, yeah, I'm working a little bit with also a slightly faster cadence.
Yeah, I feel like you said, when I was running in it, I felt that turnover seemed to come a lot faster, but not in a hardwood. It was very easy and smooth, but it just felt like it constantly kept you in motion, especially when you get up to faster speeds. Like running easy, for warm up miles in the shoe, it was like, okay, obviously not what it's meant for, but then once you kick it into the higher gears, it really starts to, all the things start working together, and it's like, okay, I like where this is going. Yeah.
All right, so let's get down to the outsole. I noticed that there's a call out on the red piece of rubber on the toe that has the Continental, and then you have kind of a translucent rubber for the rest of the outsole. Is it all Continental?
Nope. So maybe like the change from the Pro 3. Continental is a great foam. It's probably one of the rubber. It's one of the grippiest that you can get out there. It comes a little bit at the expense of weight. And another learning that we had from the Evo 1 was like, it does make a difference what kind of rubber you put on it. So what if we tried to go super light? Of course, the Evo has a liquid TPU, which comes, it's sort of like putting on slick tires for a race, right? The grip is good, but we saw that some of the athletes and some of the other consumer were quite happy with the grip provided by Continental. So we started to think, okay, do you need Continental on the whole outsole? And so we did scans in the lab that you guys went into as well, and we looked at let's call it what was the heat map of abrasion, or where do you need that traction on the sole of your feet. And it basically turns out that fundamentally the best place to put it is here where you see the red patch. That's where we keep Continental. That's where your toe off is. And that's coincidentally is where also, if you take your rods, where that sort of inlet is, right? It's the last point of contact of your foot with the road. And that's where you're going to produce that force that propels you forward. That's where you definitely want to have maximum grip. For the rest of the outsole, we developed this new material, which is also quite grippy, not as grippy as Continental, but more than enough. We made it a little bit thicker where we thought athletes would need it more than other places. It's called light traction. So it's, I would say, in terms of grippiness, our second best after Continental, but it's much lighter. Also, it allows
Yeah,
us to play a little bit with the graphics and so.
I don't think that, and I haven't run in the rain in this shoe or anything, but I don't think that it sacrifices any grip by limiting the Continental to that toe. In fact, it feels.
I ran on wood decking,
Okay.
on bricks, on pavement, on it, and I felt secure all the way around. I was just curious because of the specific call out on with a different color,
Right.
and the logo being stamped on that, whether or not it was all that way. But running in the Evo 1 with the slick tires, there was a trust factor. Like when you get out there, like, is this really going to work?
And you ran in the rain.
And I ran in the rain in that one for a half marathon. And I was like, will this work? And it surprisingly, it did. But I really like the way that you go kind of like in between traditional and the like extreme, like you said,
Yeah.
for like a Formula One tire.
Yeah.
It's interesting you mention it because so in the lab this is more related to Evo, when we tested the liquid rubber versus Continental, the grip is basically the same. But when some of our athletes that we were used to run in the Pro 3 saw it, I think psychology actually played a factor. and they felt they were not as secure. And the last thing you want is for the athletes not to be confident in their equipment on race day, right? So that's why you've seen like probably in some conditions, some of our athletes wear an Evo with a different outsole.
Well, Berlin last year,
for example, and it was primarily because they were like, well, I would feel a little bit better if it had more of a traditional Conti outsole. Again, from a performance and grip perspective, zero difference. But again, if it helps you get you that mental edge that you need on that day, then by all means, like the point for us is just to give athletes the best equipment that we can.
I mean, it looks scary. There's no, like, you're like, okay, there's like traditional outsole, there's ridges and stuff where you're like, okay, if there's going to be place for water to displace or dirt or gravel. And that one, you're like, okay, this is it. This is just a flat.
Yeah. Have you found that different colors of shoes or even designs or outsoles, does that translate into athlete performance as far as psychology? Have you found that with different models?
He found that putting 3 stripes on the side always makes it better.
Well, that would be a partial answer, but yeah, there's definitely a reaction to athletes' color. I see it happening more on short distances. I think probably in sprinting, like it's where I see it the most. The athletes there have a very clear idea of what they want to wear and like how it impacts their performance. Whether it's the color of the bodysuit that they're wearing or their spikes. And I think on such short of a distance, probably the mental game is extremely important in a different way than it is on a marathon. But I also see it in a marathon. Like some athletes have their own preferences.
Is it peacocking or is it that when you're running a 100-meter dash or something, you're looking down at your feet most of the time?
No, I think there's a little bit that I think confidence, especially on the short distance, at least from my observation, like plays a big role. Like if you mentally come in and like the other ones, I guess, are already a little bit intimidated by you, and a ways to communicate your confidence is, I guess, what you're wearing. Yeah. Like in some cases, the race is already decided before the gun goes off.
Oh wow,
dude! I mean, just putting on the Pro 4 and looking down on it, I was like, I already gained 2 minutes right there.
Lost 2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, like gained 2 minutes of performance. Just looking at him, I was like, this looks incredible. I'm gonna crush this. I mean, PR is in the sights.
The white shoes are still working, and I think that the bold 3-stripe logo works really well with like clean look.
We talk about that racer fit where it.
Yeah,
and like look where it looks like when you look down and it looks like a race day shoe, because there's certain
Altras.
There's certain other models out there of race day shoes even that I feel like just don't translate that I don't know,
like you have a dart on
that dart, that dart feel or fit. Another reason why I like the SL2 a lot is because similarly it has that same sort of profile. And
there's something about a traditional running shoe that still is beautiful. And I know that some people benefit from more toe splay and things like that. So there is a good use for it. So I'm not knocking it for the people who don't like it. But if it works for you and you can look down at your feet and they look like Formula One racers, like you said, sometimes races are won before you even start.
Yeah. And along those lines, even in the high stack movement, there's certain shoes that just don't feel or look racer-like because they're so high stacked and kind of clunky looking. The nice thing about the Pro 4, even though it has that high stack, because you bring those 3 stripes down further into it makes it look like a lower stack shoe, which to me makes it also feel like a lower stack shoe, even though it's still up at that 40 millimeters.
I mean, yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. I never thought about the lower stack because like now I'm looking at it, it's like, I guess you're right. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. For me, that's how it translates a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd say that both of us are pretty happy, and I know Megan's been running it as well, with the update. And like we mentioned earlier at the start of the talk, is that you guys made sure that this was something that was better for your athletes. Obviously, I think Adidas seems to be even more focused on this than some of the other brands, that really it is the tip of the spear that you are designing for. and then you're making accommodations for the below pro level. How much does the Pro 3 or Pro 4 take into consideration the people that are running their 3:30 marathons or something that aren't going for world records?
I mean, when I say we tested with our athletes, so we definitely had our trips to Kenya or Ethiopia to test with our elites, so we make sure that it works for them. But the pool of athletes that we use is broader than that. So we tend to look at a wider profile of finishing times to make sure we're not just catering to the 0.01% that are, going to run under 2:30. In this case, right? We understand that it's a product that it's meant for also the broader public. It also informs a little bit how we develop the other shoes in the Adizero range. Make sure that some of the learnings that we get there translate to the other ones. I think the more you go down, it's just simply put it like the price pyramid, the more democratic we want it to be, the more we adapt along these lines.
Nice. So you got the Adios Pro 4, and then the Takumi Sen 10 is, would you say that would be your tempo shoe? Which, by the way, Thomas is.
Yeah, my son just started cross country and he requested that shoe, so
Yeah.
I ended
Sure.
up picking that up for him.
So
Yes.
can we see some? Do you think we'll see some of that stuff move down then? Okay.
Maybe. Maybe.
I mean, the Takumi Sen is one of my all-time favorite shoes, especially I feel like I like the 8 and 9 a little bit more than a 10, but it's such a great shoe overall.
I think you'll be happy with the next update.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Do tell.
It's fine.
Not yet, but I'll be happy to chat with you again in a little while about it.
Okay, cool.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. My training went sideways for the Berlin Marathon, so I decided that I'm gonna run with Aubrey. So I'm gonna put this shoe to the test on how good it feels for a longer period of time
Yeah.
on the course.
Yeah.
So we'll
You
see.
should hook up some sensors to them.
See how it does.
Yeah, get all the data. I'm excited. So let me ask you something. So since the Berlin's marathon's coming up, actually, I guess by the time this comes out, it'll be over with. Is that right?
Yeah, because this doesn't come off embargo.
Yeah.
Until.
So what are some insider tips that you can give us? Because I haven't you haven't been there either. Wait,
To Berlin, I've only been to,
but not to the
Nuremberg
to the
and
marathon.
Herzegovina.
Yeah. Because this will be your 6th star, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what are some tips for navigating the Berlin Marathon that might be useful for us?
Where are the hills?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, there aren't that many, right? It's a pretty flat course. I think that the total climb is, don't quote me on this, but I think it's 25 meters, right? So it's
Oh, wow.
fairly flat, right? So
Yeah, that's basically
75 feet.
My house to your house. Yeah.
yeah, it's like you can actually go like, and that's why I think you've seen world records either broken there or in Chicago, right? I think it's a big loop. You basically kind of almost you finish where you started, a little bit further behind as you pass through the Brandenburg Tour. I would say just my tip is not much related to the course, but as much more to the surroundings. The energy is just incredible. Like there's like the whole of Berlin usually comes out, and it's just a huge street party. And because it happens to go around the city, right? You're not like in Boston where it's out there, and it gradually becomes more crowded. Like it's crowded the whole way through. And for me, I found just the energy that you get from the city and from the people is incredible. And I think that's what propels you throughout the race.
So, out of curiosity, last year, when you had the Evo one out there and it was kind of the debut for the shoe, was your team at the finish? Like, where were you?
I was at the beginning and at the finish, and I was so nervous because we were just debuting it, right? So I wasn't running. I will be running this year. But last year I wasn't. But last year I was at the start line, and then eventually I transitioned to the finish line. And I think I only started watching the TV as Tigges was past kilometer 30 because it looked like she was doing well, and the guys in charge of sports marketing for us he was like, "Oh, she's actually going really fast." And I think we started believing in that. Like, you never could have bet money on the fact that you were going to break a world record in the first race you run with the shoe, right? We were hoping podium, right? And then it was like, oh, okay, I think, you know, she might win this. And then eventually you're like, oh crap, like she's in world record course. So that became, I mean, it's almost like a fairy tale.
Yeah, what was it? I was like, I'm guessing you weren't by yourself. You're with a team of people that were responsible for bringing this shoe to life. Like that has to be like a high point in your career to have somebody put on a piece of equipment that you spend so much time on, and then break a world record.
It's also, it was such an incredible ride because in some ways the Evo was a little bit of an impossible product. We went through so many moments that had we followed sort of standard rules about how you develop a product and how you go about assessing quality, or like what do you do differently, versus, for example, developing a Pro 3 or Pro 4, you would have just stopped because it's like, you know, it's not according to the standard quality rules that we want for a product that we normally bring to market for the normal consumer. And this was just you know, this could fail in a million different ways. But what if it doesn't, right? And there were so many moments along the route when we developed it that where you're like, oh crap, like, I don't know, the rubber, the liquid TPU is falling off, or, you know, the you have delamination in the foam, or the upper is not sticking the way we wanted. And I was so happy for the actual team that worked day in and day out on this is that they had this incredible mentality about like, we will find the one way in which this thing will work. And the fact that it broke a world record on debut was such a testament and a coronation to all the hard work that they had put in over all the long months. Even just like weeks before, we weren't sure, can we bring it to Berlin, so on and so forth. It was just like a little bit of a race against time and against odds. And just like seeing that story culminate in that, you can't describe it in words.
Yeah.
Is that changed the way that you guys develop, like, or look at doing a shoe now?
Yeah, I think it really gives a different energy to the whole, not just running as a business unit, but in some ways the company as well, right? Like, but what if it does work?
Yeah, I like that.
I like that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that obviously the shoe was not the cheapest shoe on the market, but in some ways I feel like,
You mean the
this is
most
going to
expensive
sound
shoe?
crazy, the most expensive running shoe, but I feel like in some ways it's justified because you just were telling me about the people working around the clock on this project and all the time and effort and and iterations of the shoe and figuring out what works and what doesn't. I'm like, that's a lot of work to put into one shoe that's not even mass produced, because it's really impossible.
Oh, 500 units at a time, correct?
Yeah, we started with 521 units. Now, we increased a little bit of production, and it's not because we're trying to make, like, honestly, it's not artificial scarcity. It's just hard to make especially because the way the foam is produced.
Because it's an uncompressed foam, so you have to. I'm assuming you cut out each midsole individually, right?
Correct. So you could imagine it as every single shoe being almost hand made, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why there's just a natural limitation on capacity.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I was always, even in the beginning, I feel like we pointed that out. Like, look, this is a shoe that took a lot of development.
It's also not for everybody. Just because there's a shoe out there doesn't mean you have to have it. And I think that some people get caught up in the fact that they're like, whether it's ego or what, they feel like they have to have the shoe.
Yeah.
And it's like
I don't own a Rolls Royce for a reason.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm,
exactly.
but I love
a Seiko and a Rolex.
But I love the craftsmanship of it, and I appreciate that some people do. So,
and that was the point, right? Without wanting to exclude, we tried to build a very inclusive range. Like, so we believe that every pace has a place, right? There's also a place for paces that are, 2 minutes 50 a kilometer, and that's the shoe for that.
Yeah.
Right.
And for the average runner, there's really, like, let's be real, the me, I don't need an Evo 1 to run in, you know. The Pro 4 is going to get me everything I need to do.
The Pro 4 is probably more than you need.
Actually, yeah, it's accurate.
My PR is still in the Kinvara.
Yeah.
So we got plenty of room.
And I know $500 is a lot of money, right? Like, I mean, I have some development samples, some prototypes of Evo. I don't own one myself. Like, I'm not as good as a runner. But the point is that I don't know if, you know, PR or legal or finance are going to kill me right now, but it kind of covers the cost of material, but it doesn't cover like all the research and development.
Right.
Yeah.
Like all the engineers and scientists are working on this thing for, in some cases, years. Those are not included in that.
But I think, and that's what I love.
So you're still getting the value.
And that's what I love about it, is because I think a lot of companies or brands get stuck in the just normal flow of things.
Earn this much.
Yeah, let's just hit this line. Let's put this out. Let's not. But to really build on innovation and keep things fresh and new, you have to take those kind of risks, or else you're just going to end up putting out the same stuff
Or
every
have
year.
those projects.
Yeah.
So quick question for you. You've obviously conquered the Evo 1 breaks a world record. You've got the Pro 4, which is going to be more democratic and easier for runners to get a hold of, hopefully. So you step it down. We're seeing brands like Solomon do the S-Lab Spectre, which is a shoe specifically designed for people who are going to be out there a little bit longer, which, you know, still convincing the consumer they don't need the, you know, high-powered rifle when they, you know, they need something that's going to work for them for 26.2 miles. Are you looking at that within the Adios Zero line at all?
So short answer is yes. There's also, generally speaking, and I think you guys talked about it in your last podcast, there's a little bit of an explosion of breadth of shoes. So it was about trying to find a balance. Is there something in my current lineup that could do the job without me having to create something completely new? So the short answer is, first of all, I don't think everyone needs a bladed shoe, right? A bladed shoe starts to be helpful at certain paces, at certain distances. And then the other thing, like for a long time, it's taken me, I'm definitely not the fastest runner. I was toying on whether to run Berlin with the Pro 4 or with a Boston. Because honestly, at my pace, you could say like, well, yeah, Boston is a fast tempo trainer, but you know, Boston. So there's definitely that. I'm still looking at it. So I'm not saying that there might not be something for a little bit slower paces, but I'm also trying to figure out, like, do we have something in the line that does the job without having to bring something else to the market and make it even more confusing for consumers to navigate millions of brands, millions of shoes, and just try to keep it as simple as possible.
That's a good point. You bring up the Boston, which I've had a rocky relationship with, but the last version is one I adore. Again, it has shared something with the Pro 3 as far as the upper goes, being a little bit more rigid. Are we going to be seeing, are we waiting until 2025 to see an update to the Boston?
Maybe.
Maybe a year earlier? Before the end of the year?
Not this year. Let's say it like that.
Okay.
All right.
That shoe makes
January 1st, 2025.
Yeah, that shoe, I do. Now that you mention it, that is a great alternative for someone who's going to be out there a little bit longer, on their feet a little bit longer, just with it has a little bit of a wider platform, stuff like that. So.
Yeah.
Can you, you're talking about the breadth of shoes and the amount of shoes that are available, and so, because there's the Boost line, there's the Adios Zero, there's Supernova. Yeah, the Supernova is somewhat new.
What's the one that was the big blocky one?
Adistar.
Oh, yeah. Adistar. Yeah. Can you maybe, for those listening, kind of deviate between can you give them more of a translation, a translation of what all those lines do?
Yeah. So the general philosophy is to associate one main benefit to a certain family, right? Like in cars, you have, if you take I'm gonna say Audi, for example, right? If you have an S line, it's going to be sports. If a Q, it's going to be an SUV. And if it's an A, it's going to be like your normal cars, and they all come with their own benefits. So the idea is sort of the same, right? General philosophy. So Adios Zero is light and fast, is everything around races and train for races specifically. Then you move over. Supernova is the one that we associate mostly with comfort in everyday running. Adi Star is our max cushioning proposition. And Ultra Boost is what's it like, energy and versatility, right? I think you guys mentioned it when you did the review. Like the idea is like you have a great running shoe, but it's also a shoe that does other stuff, right? Like you can take it out, like you can take it under jeans, but it still starts, and we want it to be a great running shoe. So, but these are in a nutshell, the differences between those four families.
Gotcha.
I have to apologize for the Ultra Boost because this year it seems like every shoe brand decided to make heavier shoes. And when we first got the Ultra Boost, I was like, wow, it's still not that light. And it's under 11 ounces for my size 10 and a half.
Yeah, it's actually lighter than a lot
and
of
then
daily
all these,
trainers.
all these other shoes I got were like much heavier. And I was like, oh man, the Ultra Boost actually is in a pretty good spot.
No, but I think it comes a little bit from the history where Ultra Boosts have been over the last couple of years. Like honestly, like it went down being a little bit too heavy, right? I also probably didn't also have enough cushioning, and that's what we wanted to course correct with the 24 edition. We worked a lot on the compound, so Light Boost is a very different Light Boost, even from the one that we had brought out in 23. So while it's called Light Boost, it is a different compound. It's much lighter. We managed to trap a little bit more air between the different bubbles, and I think you can feel both in terms of weight, but also in terms of cushioning and energy return.
Yeah.
One of my questions that I proposed about the shoe that maybe you can help me out with is I felt like the Ultra Boost, if the rubber layout was a little bit different, if it had more segmentation in it, it would let the foam express itself in different ways. Is that something? I'm guessing that you test all different kinds of configurations of rubber. Is there any validation to what I'm thinking, or is that
Absolutely. So what you don't want to happen is when exposed foam hits the road, that then it delaminates from the rubber too fast, right? Because that's one of the most annoying things that probably can happen to you as a runner. So you have to place it strategically in a way that, yes, you optimize the way the foam behaves, while also making sure that you cover the right spots so you don't get that excessive abrasion.
okay?
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, again, the Ultra Boost for me, I thought that was one of our biggest surprises of the year. It was just, and it's actually the first time I ran in the Ultra Boost, and I was like, this is a pretty nice shoe.
I mean, the biggest improvement besides it losing some weight was the extra cushioning in the forefoot.
Yeah.
Took it from a shoe that felt very aggressive in the lean forward and a little bit thin under the toes to now it feels pretty much in line with what people are looking for underfoot cushioning.
And I think that was the biggest change probably from the 23 versions, that we basically added double the amount that you had in the 23 geometry versus the 24 in the forefoot, because that's what we felt like, okay, that's where people feel that cushioning. That's the first impression that they get at step in, and we want to express Boost at the best of its possibilities, which is that nice cushioning and energy return feeling.
All right. I want to wrap up with one last kind of question. I don't know. Matt's going to have to let us know if this is going to be able to be in the podcast. So you can cut this last part out and then jump to it.
I'll kick Matt out of the chat.
All right. So the Evo 1 obviously looks beautiful. It's elegant. It's streamlined. It's just a phenomenal looking running shoe. And I know that we're coming out with a version that is more consumer friendly and maybe not even so much a running shoe, but a lifestyle shoe, shaped and visually looks like the Evo 1, and we'll share the name to a certain degree. Can you talk to me about the decision to take that shoe into lifestyle?
You're talking about the Evo SL?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually not a lifestyle shoe. It is a running shoe. The idea here was we have interesting aesthetics with the with the Evo, and I think it's a little bit the aesthetics that's defining it. Also, Pro 4 Adios Zero is a line, and the thing about Adios Zero is that you have a stiffening element basically all the way through until you reach the SL2, right? And so we're like, okay, well, what if we took geometries like the Evo, like the Pro 4, but we didn't have a stiffening element heel to toe in it? What kind of running shoe would it make? Right? It was a little bit of, again, an experiment. And that's how the Evo SL was born. So it was the idea of bringing a little bit of that fast feeling, but to a little bit more of a democratic approach, right? Because as you mentioned, like the Evo 1 and the feeling that you get is not exactly like for everyone, but what if, right, if we could tune it into more of a democratic direction?
So what type of foam? Oh, there it is. See, Robbe, it looks just like that. It's such a good looking.
It is
piece.
It's nice.
What type of foam is that? Is that the Light Strike?
This is Light Strike Pro. It's not exactly the same that we put on Pro 4 because this being bouncier without a stiffening element, we felt we needed to do some tweaks for it not to become too unstable. That's where the rods play a role. So that's why it's a Light Strike Pro. It's closer to the one that we had in a Pro 3 as a formulation, but again, because you don't have that heel to toe stiffening element, you get a little bit more of that cushioning feeling that you get in general from super foams.
Can we see the bottom there?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Right. Oh, that's cool. A pretty looking shoe.
Thank you.
So clean. I love a clean looking shoe, and this one is like I'm salivating.
Yeah.
All right, and so this one also, the price point though is also democratic. Like this one is $150, Robbe.
Wow.
So
that's crazy.
You can show up to the race looking like you're, from Kenya,
and nobody will know. Everyone will think
they'll
you're
know. They'll know.
No, the everyday person.
Oh
yeah.
And this was part of my rotation, like leading up to Berlin. Now, like for
really
easy days. Yeah, it was. Like, some easy day, longer miles. It definitely was.
What's the weight on that for a size 9?
Well, I have to get back to you on that. I think we're around 200 grams here as well. Or slightly under, actually.
So it's still light.
It's still pretty light. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when will this shoe be available?
We're actually launching it together with the Pro 4 in Berlin this weekend.
Oh, sick. So it'll be off embargo at the same
Matt,
time.
Do we all get?
You will see it as you get there.
Nice.
I would love to shake out in that shoe.
That's awesome.
Right, let me see what we can do there.
All right, that's a beauty, man.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've taken up your time. This has been great because I think that the interest in the. Go ahead, Robbe.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah,
I forgot.
I got time, guys. I love talking to you, so don't worry.
Right.
I forgot I went to ask this earlier. How soon do you think the 2-hour marathon mark will be broken? Or do you think it'll be broken, and how soon?
Answer yes.
Okay.
Like honestly speaking, between us, and it's sad. I think Kelvin Kiptum was probably the one that was closest to it. That's really, really sad.
Yeah, for sure.
But there are a couple of guys who are definitely in reach of that. Right now, there's quite a few people running around 203, 204. So, say if the next shoe that comes out right in the space is able to provide an additional 1% running economy. That's all you need. Mm-hmm. Like that's how far we are, right? Even just 1%.
Yeah. So maybe just give them some baking soda.
We're close, right? And then I wonder if then that's what we're gonna trigger, like what happened with the 4-minute mile, right? Like to forever beat it, and then like as soon as it happened, like so many.
I definitely think that's gonna happen. I mean, we've seen it in U.S. women's racing. The record for the American record has been 3 people have participated in breaking that in the last few years. Mm-hmm. So I can't imagine. I actually think even just Kipchoge doing the what was it? The Breaking 2 project. That showed that in ideal conditions, it's possible. So I think that opens people's minds.
Yeah, I hope we're close. Because I think it really like opens up a complete new era.
Do you feel like that's the North Star, like the one
Mission.
thing that everyone's kind of working towards in the race department?
Can definitely say like it's on our mind.
Yeah.
All right.
It has to be. I mean,
Is there a
obviously.
bonus structure around getting someone
No,
to break
I
2
think
hours?
it's a
in the
pat on the back, but
right.
it's. I mean, we're not out for that, right? Like for us, it's just helping. Let's be clear, right? The guys running the marathons are the heroes. It's not us building the shoes, right?
Yeah.
But it's just being able to contribute to that and helping them achieve such a superhuman feat. Just that feels extraordinary.
But you're saying it is the shoes, right?
No, it's the athlete. The shoes help, but it's the athlete. I think, and you guys touched upon it so many times. Super shoes changed. I think not just the way a race it's run, but everything around it from before and after and how you train leading up.
Yeah.
That's
Recovery.
been the big contribution. But at the end, it's the athletes, their lungs, their minds, their legs running it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Cool.
weird because I thought when I got the Evo ones, I was going to do a little better.
Turns out you're right. It is the athlete.
It wasn't that. Maybe 1% better.
I wish my Pro 4s were running the marathon for me on Sunday, but I know it's
I
going to
think
be me
that's-
with my dark moments.
Yeah, that's the problem is I'm relying on the shoes too much.
Yeah. Shoes and a good tailwind is key to success.
Will you be coming to the shakeout?
Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Sick.
That'll
All
that'll be fun.
Yep.
Yeah, we can't wait.
I guess-
we're gonna be there. I know that this is
Yeah.
gonna post afterwards, but we're like this weekend and we're coming next Tuesday, so we'll be.
Are
on
you
our
feeling
way.
about jet lag and everything?
I mean, we
We'll
did
see.
Japan. I've done London.
Yeah.
So
What's the deal with CBD THC gummies over there?
I don't know if they're officially. Well, first, don't take my advice. I think they're tolerated, right? So,
Okay. Can you buy them
I'm
over
not
there?
sure
Can
how
you-
they.
no, I don't think it's legal.
No, I don't think it's legal in Germany yet. It's not.
Okay.
It's not the Netherlands.
All right. So probably. All right. Yeah. All right. That's good to know. But yeah, I was
He's
wondering
saying
with,
that for jet lag because Robbie
for sleep aids. Yeah.
when
for,
we were in Tokyo-
just
Yeah.
for sleep aids.
We're
Yeah.
in Tokyo. Robbie took a melatonin an hour or so before the race.
No,
by
it was
accident.
more than
Oh.
that. I looked up the half-life of it and I was like, I'm good, but I might not have been good. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out. Now we're getting there 4 or 5 days before the
We're
race,
getting there.
so we'll have.
I guess we're getting there Wednesday.
And-
we're leaving Tuesday.
and it's only 6 hours as opposed to the 14 hours in
Yeah.
Tokyo, so I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
too
When
worried
I
about it.
I got really worried about London the first time we went, so I changed my whole sleep schedule and was like going to bed at like 4:00 here in the U.S. so that we'd be ready. I got there, I was fine, but then we went to Tokyo. You can't plan for that. Like you're running
No.
in the future, and you just have to buckle up.
Yeah.
I saw my future and it was not good.
Yeah.
But,
Are you going to
Thomas,
come to the U.S. for any of the majors?
so we'll be in New York.
All right.
And then I guess I'll also be at TRE, so I guess I'll see you guys probably.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
What do we get? Is there going to be any secret stuff at TRE this
Oh
year?
yeah, definitely. I'll show you some stuff that we couldn't talk
Sick.
about today.
All right,
right.
very cool. All right, Patrick, we will see you soon.
Yeah, and
Thank you,
I'm
guys.
looking forward to getting some miles in with you and Patrick Flieger.
Likewise.
All right, Alvida
You
Zane.
guys, see you soon.
All right.